lucky. I got a great ALJ judge. As you very know, Idaho is not very marijuana friendly.
Right.
And the judge made the ruling that the LCB, Liquor Control Board back then was called, they don't know their own rules, their own regulations. I was acquitted, good to go. And that's how I set the record. I was the first one to kind of get not sacrificed, but
right.
It cost me $12,000 to defend myself. And, I wasn't the behemoth I am today.
Right.
You know what I mean? I still had a little Chevy Sonic I was making deliveries in across the, sleeping in public parks and stuff. With the hatch back up and my feet out because, the money was tight.
Just building your business.
That's right.
Just
Learning,
your business.
paying my dues.
And welcome back to Meet Unshackled here at MJ BizCon 2023. We are here with myself. This is Max Uas from Dope SEO and
Stanislava, happy to co-host once again.
Okay, cool. And we're going to be talking about New Mexico here. We have two phenomenal, extremely well versed in just because New Mexico is its own little world of cannabis, and I feel like just as over time, like we've done so many states, but New Mexico is, I love New Mexico. So I'm going to let's start with you. Introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? I know who you are, but for everybody else watching.
My name is Matt Koppelman. I'm the founder and one of the owners of Score 420 LLC. 6 locations.
Yep.
Working on New Jersey.
Yep.
Working on New York. We're going to get one of those MSO licenses. $200,000.
Wow.
Jesus. Okay. All right.
Hustler.
I'm back. But you also, it's not just retail. I mean, you have a.
Oh, yes. We manufacture our own pre-rolls.
Right.
We process our own flour.
Yep.
Most of our own flour. The lower end flour. The more bougie flour, the upscale flour comes in, pretty well trimmed and manicured, and we just package it into Mylar or jars or whatever it needs to be packaged into.
Right on. So you got retail, you got manufacturing, processing, delivery as well, or
we tried delivery. It wasn't for us at the moment. We were expanding. We had our Alamogordo store opening up. We were getting, a couple per night. One issue was our delivery driver was a black market guy trying to sell his own product when he was delivering our product. So
I love New Mexico. Okay, this is why we're talking about this.
And I told that guy, I said, listen, bro, I don't care what you do on your own time. You want to hustle, that's your prerogative.
Yeah.
Don't mix it in my business.
Right.
And of course, a loyal customer says, hey, bro, this guy's doing this.
He's trying to pawn off his other.
But you know how he really got let go? It's a funny story.
It took more than that?
I just want to make that clear.
It took more than that.
He was closing up and he was counting money and the money counter wasn't working. It was just jamming. He punched the hell out of it. I got it on camera. And it's like, all right, this guy got to go.
Was that the final straw? Yeah.
Well, no, the black market stuff didn't come to after he was let go.
Right.
Okay.
That's when they came. Okay. Yeah. Of course, if I would have, you would have, no question. But that was.
It's like you're breaking company equipment.
Yeah, and I always told the guy, I said, we'll just say his name was Steve. I was like, Steve. Only Steve could fire Steve.
Right.
Because he was always paranoid that someone was out to get him or get his job and blah, blah, blah. And he was actually a decent worker, but his priorities was many stories in Score 420.
We're going to talk about all the fun stuff in New Mexico. And you've been a guest multiple times.
Nope.
Please introduce yourself.
My name's Seth Gardenswartz. I am one of the co-founders of Black Garden Law. We have a boutique business law firm in Albuquerque. I'm a native of Albuquerque.
Right.
Spent a lot of time, obviously, there, and some other places. But so we had a boutique firm that does business law. We started doing cannabis work about 4 years ago, and we've got a nice little cluster of really good cannabis businesses in the state. We also do we have a big portion of our practice that's IP related. We do that, regionally and nationally.
Like intellectual property? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What made you want to get into the cannabis industry?
Good question. We had avoided it. Like every year we'd have our annual meeting on a chairlift, my partner and I, and so kind of a if it's a short meeting, we take the express lip. It's a longer meeting, we take the.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So
Okay.
we got it figured out. We never got into it because there were only 35 medical licensees, and they were all up and running before we started our firm, and we just didn't see any point to getting into that space, right? So when the statute was passed and before it was enacted, we realized that there was going to be a lot more business coming in, and around that same time, one of the legacy people had hired us to do a trademark project for them. I'm like, okay, this is really cool and fun and interesting.
Okay.
We had landed a big industrial hemp client, and it opened our eyes into how big the market is, like how sophisticated it is. And then as this rush to get ready for recreational adult use started, we learned about how much these were all going to be actual businesses now, and none of them had business. There was no structure for that, and all the attorneys. There's some really good attorneys and consultants working in the space in New Mexico, but they didn't do that kind of work. So we just decided we're not going to do licensure, right? We're not going to focus on the regulatory side. We're just going to do the business structure, the finance, the investment, the IP, and the sort of contracts that these business stuff that these places will
need. Right.
And it worked out really well because we were we got in early, and we made it a point to let people know what we were doing, and by definition, we were kind of taking on the clients who were raising some money, and we were a tech law firm. We're still a tech law firm. Tech is financed a lot like cannabis because no one will lend you money to write software or grow weed for different reasons, right? But that means that if you're going to start either one of those businesses, you're going to have to talk someone into giving you money.
Right.
That's right.
And you're going to give them back ownership or some kind of some sort of security interest in that. So.
Very cool.
We have our investor right there, Miles Hansen.
Okay.
That's our investor right there.
Now, Matt, you have an interesting story because you moved to New Mexico to start your business there. I mean, I know you were operating in
Washington
State, and then you moved to New Mexico to open.
Yeah. So, a little background in my cannabis experience. Started not New Mexico, Spokane, Washington, 2014 Sourface.
Okay.
LLC. Okay. Sourface comes from my friends used to call me that in my 20s.
I noticed it's on your name tag. That's your name
I don't know why they did that.
Well, they gave you both. They gave you Sourface Kopelman.
So I started as a one-man show. Basically, what I started with, I bought trim from producers, made it into pressed hash. Real simple. I got a keef machine, keefed it, put it in the jack puck, heated it up nice, just real old school, very manual. Started from there, got into stores, and I started wholesaling or buying flower from outdoor growers who don't want to trim it. You know, I do the legwork, build up, then build employees, and then I had the state try to cancel my license because of a true party interest. Because I had a salesman, and he was getting percentages, and they were saying that's illegal because you're giving a percentage out. You have to give whatever. So the enforcement officer was hot on my tail. He had to prove something. I disputed it. Got a lawyer, Harrison Bracken. You probably heard of them. Out of the Seattle office. Flew out. Basically, I got lucky. I got a great ALJ judge.
Okay.
It might sound funny because I did research on the judge, on the administrative judge. She was actually an assistant AG of Idaho.
Okay.
As you very know, Idaho is not very marijuana friendly.
Right.
They went at the border, when they come over. So you got to be careful.
Yeah. It used to be like that between New Mexico and Texas, and I think now they're.
But I assessed it as like it is what it is. So, and we had the hearing, and the judge made the ruling that the LCB, Liquor Control Board back then was called, that they don't know their own rules, their own regulations. I was acquitted. Basically, she just said you're good to go, and that's how I set the record for that true part. I was the first one to kind of get not sacrificed, but it cost me $12,000 to defend myself. And, I wasn't the behemoth I am today.
Right.
You know what I mean? I still had a little Chevy Sonic I was making deliveries in across the, sleeping in public parks and stuff with the hatchback up and my feet out because, the money was tight.
Just building your business.
That's
though.
right.
Just building
Learning,
your business.
paying my dues.
Paying your dues.
So whatever. Fast forward, build and build.
Yeah.
And around 2020, Corona started happening. Then I had a real nasty dirt bike accident, and I smashed up my foot pretty. I walk with a limp, so and pain, blah blah blah. So, and then the market was going down. It's like I got to do something else. I got to get out of the Washington market. Like it's time to go. Like whatever. I made my money. It's time to move on. So then New Mexico came up. I was like, no residency requirements. The barrier to entry is very easy compared to other states, and I just went on Craigslist and started contacting landlords, and I found a property company that's very marijuana friendly, and they had some properties that were open, and I did some research, and by luck, there were good traffic counts, a lot of traffic, foot traffic. We're in Old Town, which is a historic area, a lot of tourism, we don't get a lot of tourist traffic. Who's going to bring their kids to a pot shop? You know what I mean?
Is that allowed in America? Because I'm from Canada, and you absolutely cannot even bring a baby in.
No, we're not allowed to have, and we were fighting people. It's funny you bring that up. People would bring their babies in. We're like,
you got to go outside.
You got to get the hell out of here. And they're, and they get all belligerent. But we came up with a solution: curbside service. Call us. I have the number right on the door. We'll come right out to you. We'll take your order. And then that worked.
Okay.
But yes, we did have, believe it or not, they're like, other medical places let us do it. So and then we printed out right from the CCD, put it right on the damn door. 21 means 21 besides medical, 18 and up. It's crazy. And then you got trying to minors that are medical patients. They need their caregivers to come in at 18, not them at 15 or 30. You know what I mean? It's a ridiculous way people try to pull.
This is why I love New Mexico. You don't hear stories like this just about anywhere else, but you hear it here. So since, because you basically, you opened up what, 2020?
2021, our first started June 21, yeah.
And Seth, you got into it. What have you guys seen since then in New Mexico? Like, how has New Mexico evolved? How has the game changed? Like, what have you seen differently in how the licensing, cultivation, processing, delivery, laws?
Go ahead, man.
Everything.
So New Mexico made an interesting choice at the get-go. They decided that they weren't going to limit licenses. They weren't going to quota licenses. They were going to have a pretty open field. So it was not. When I say it's relatively easy to get a license, I don't mean that the process is simple. There's a lot of steps to it and so forth. But there's not a lot of limitations to it. It's like, do you have the time and energy or resources to get a license, and you can get one, right? So the only limiting factor actually is water. Like if you're going to grow outdoors, other than urban, you have to prove that you've got enough water.
Oh.
So that's an interesting little and it's nice to have that limit.
Yeah.
But the state engineer's office was not ready for applications that were partially approved to come to the engineer's office. To have them go, it's like, oh great, now we got to go check the dope wells. Like this is, So aside from that, not a lot of limitations. So what happened, of course, is there's a lot of licensees. So New Mexico now has about the same number of licenses as Colorado.
Wow.
With half the population and, I like to say, and a quarter of the money. So that happened. Everybody got in. There's a lot of people in. There's more dispensaries in Albuquerque, which is the largest city, than Starbucks or McDonald's combined.
No way.
No shit. Like, shit you not.
Really?
Yeah.
High there all the time.
There's more dispensaries than McDonald's by themselves or fast food restaurants?
McDonald's and Starbucks combined.
What?
Wow.
Okay.
So there's lots of units.
I mean, there's not hundreds of Starbucks.
Right,
I mean,
right.
It's 200 licenses that were approved, and a little bit over, right, on the city website.
I think it's more than that in the city.
But not all of them are open, though.
Right.
Open for
Right.
business.
Okay.
So that's another good example, though. If they got the license, they didn't get open. What happened? Like it's not. And what I heard, we probably all heard at some point, is it's a license to print money. It is not a license to print money, right? It is definitely not that. It's if you don't. And I think because the barrier to entry was modest, a lot of people who didn't necessarily have a lot of business experience
were able to scrape together a little bit of money and
Get
jump
in.
in.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people thought they were going to get rich really fast and had all these crazy ideas, but
Right.
with zero experience of running a business,
Well,
how to do it.
And this is a much harder business. You know, look about some of our other business clients. Like if you're going to open an auto repair shop, if you can figure out what equipment you need for your market segment, and there's 2 bay shops, there's 4 bay shops, and you can sort of figure this out, and then you can borrow some money. If you want to open a brewery or a restaurant, you can borrow money you can get an SBA loan. You can't do any of that in this market. And by the way, when we look at people's pro formas sometimes,
Okay.
and they say we're going to plant this many plants, we're like, great. What do you think your yield's going to be? Like, what do you mean?
Because they had no idea.
Well, they've got forecasted sales, which are
Right, what we're going to sell,
Right.
but you obviously need product
you
to
need
sell
product to sell that,
to-
right.
Yeah.
So we've and look, this is all part of a normal business process.
Yeah.
We usually don't see markets that are this immature, and we don't think of it as immature because there's other states doing it, and obviously New Mexico had a pretty robust medical program for a long
Right.
time. But this has been a real shock. And when people say, "Oh my God, there's 2 dispensaries in every strip mall in Albuquerque, what are we going to do about this?" I usually say it's like, well, if you're cool with capitalism, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
It's going to be kind of ugly for a little
Yes.
while, but all that vacancy strip mall space is going to be vacant again. And keep in mind, if everybody's only doing 70% of what they plan to do, each one of those that goes dark, that 70% gets poured back into the rest of the market.
Yeah, absolutely. It
Right.
it picks back up and it
Right.
meshes back in. Now, this is an interesting spin because Matt, I know you went from 1 location to, is it 6 now, right?
Well, I just acquired another property in Sunland Park,
Are you at 7?
and 7, and then we're waiting for Las Cruces to be done. That they've been dragging. I signed that contract October last year, and they're just dragging their feet.
Right.
So I mean, but right now it's just we're still adapting to our growth. I mean, it's a lot of growth in a year and a half.
Yeah,
Right.
it really
It
is.
is.
And a lot of it is self-growth because we only got invested $200,000. You know what I'm saying? Like,
That's why I say you're the hardest working man in cannabis.
well,
That's an interesting point he's kind of making there because he's talking about people often show up and they go, "Oh, what are you going to do?" It's like, we're going to be a vertically integrated micro licensing.
Right.
It's like, really? You're going to do all 3 of those things and all on a small scale? So, what you're articulating here is that you're not trying to trying to manufacture all your product, grow all your product. Like you've got being able to do what you do means that you had to focus on some segments of the business.
that's right. That's through experience. That's what I learned
Yeah.
through Sourface.
Yeah.
I've seen what 65-cent joints to Uncle Ike's could sell, and to, 420 Carpenter and all those big multi-chain out in King County and Olympia and blah, blah. I was making decent money, and I only had like 6 clients, or six retail stores, excuse me.
Right.
But they were huge. You know what I mean? There would be big orders. I mean, tens of thousands of pre-rolls. Unreal.
Yeah.
So that's how I brought this into this market. We are the #1 seller of pre-rolls. I'll stand by that.
In the state.
In the state of New Mexico. Out of 1 store.
How many pre-rolls a month do you sell, Matt?
Well, our factory, right, or probably make about 80 to 85,000 a month.
A month.
Then those goes to our stores.
Right.
Now I'm just talking 1 store, our Old Town location. We sell on average, about 8 to 10,000 joints a week out of that location only.
Wow.
And the reason why I could say this, because I've sold, like I said, to Uncle Ike's and Headset. You familiar with that program? I used to get data reports from Headset every day about how my brand's doing and which strains are selling, and compared to other guys in your, other vendors in your category, how you measuring up. And I'd be always killing them. But what I was looking at, this store does $1 million a month in sales, but it's only selling 600 to 700 pre-rolls a day. It's a joke. We're selling, on average 1,300 a day. On a fast day, 1,800.
Single pre-rolls.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, because we clinched the market early.
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody, if you like, when we started, everybody looked the same. Everybody felt the same.
Right.
No one is bringing something in. Like if you bring in a segment, other stuff will sell, right? We started selling 4 for $20 pre-rolls. I found a great source at a great price, and I said, we're going to make a good margin off this.
Yep.
Great margin. We took that margin and expanded it. That's why you see these, 8 stores. You know what I mean? Just blowing up, just all pre-rolls. We're still like, our business is still 75% pre-rolls.
Pre-rolls.
Wow.
Pre-rolls. And I think so let's just put it this way. So for this, because and Eric's not talking, but I know we're hitting the 20-something mark, so we can probably go for another 5-10. But so with this, from 2021, 2022 to now going into next year, with the competition, with the new stores opening up, with the licenses, with the, you've grown. Other people have shut down. Other business, because you hear both sides. It's like, oh, business sucks. Nobody's buying. It's too competitive. Da, da, da. Obviously, there's a way to do it. Obviously, there's a way to make money. There's a way to lose money. There's a way to expand. There's a way to complain and just, what I, because I feel like I'm a sales marketing guy, and like that's what I look at. I'm like, if you're not selling, some people think it's like, I built a brand, now they need to come to me. It was almost like when we were walking in here this morning, they're like,
You haven't built a brand.
You haven't built a
unless
brand.
they're already coming. Unless they're coming to you.
There you
When
go.
Exactly.
That is just linguistically. I think fundamentally, people, they want to say, "Hey, I built this brand. It ain't your brand is not what you think it is.
Right.
Right.
It's only what other people think it is.
That's
And if
completely
that
correct.
doesn't drive margin or sales or something like that, if you have a brand, it's either bad or you don't have a brand.
So do you think ego gets in the way sometimes of people's growth in business?
Oh, it's 100%.
That might be your
agreed.
interpretation.
Yeah.
I think that's a very thoughtful comment.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I think in the back of my head, when they get cocky like that, I said, bro, in the next year, there's going to be 20, 30 other vendors that are going to eat you alive in pricing and in packaging. It's going to look 100% better than yours.
Right.
And it's true. Look at us now. I'm getting cards dirt cheap. Like, I don't even disclose what I'm paying. But it's very reasonable. And I can make those more. I could sell $20 full gram cards out the door to the customer. That's a great deal.
That is a great deal.
$25 disposables. Like, crazy.
Wow.
Mix and match with pre-rolls. You always got to stay ahead. So when we did the 4 for 20, then the morons started doing 5 for 20. And I said, okay, you want to play ball? Let's play ball.
When they go low, we go lower.
So I didn't go lower per se. I did a 6 for 26, but what I really did was I did mix and match. So you could go like into a grocery, you mix and match your 6-pack, same thing.
Right.
You still get that discount. You get any amount of strains you want. And they're all in separate tubes. You know what I mean? Nobody's doing that yet.
Yeah.
So.
But no one's going to hear about it.
What? Oh no, they already know
Nobody's
about
ever
it.
gonna know.
So, just with this, so what's gonna happen now for New Mexico, like moving into next year, based on what has been happening for the last year? Because I know that there were, just talking to you, like I know that there were a lot of black market fake operator pot shops popping up, like basically whether it was hemp derivatives or just like opening up and just.
There was a lot of product coming into the market that probably wasn't growing the market.
Right.
And
yeah. Cali weed or something.
The RLD has
Yeah.
there's been some enforcement actions.
There
So
has been enforcement?
There has been.
Okay.
Against licensee holders.
Right.
Not against people who are actually really illicit. Not a guy who just opens up a shop and just they're not really being proactive in shutting
Right.
those people down.
Right.
But if you sign on the dotted line, right, when you get a license, you have this heed by compliance and all that. So that's easy to bust them.
Yeah.
But when they don't sign on the dotted line, it's really hard for them to come in. Then they got their constitutional rights and all that.
So is it still a black market issue?
But you still have
Of course, yes,
constitutional
there's
rights.
a black market. There's,
You still have constitutional rights even if you're a licensee.
No, what I'm trying to.
Yeah, I know. You're saying it's a criminal. It's I know.
I feel like
I didn't go to law
I'm
school.
going to
you
shut
know?
up. I'm going to shut up because it might be accurate, but it's not going to be interesting. So I'm just going to stop talking about it. Yeah.
No. Well, I mean, let's. If this is, people are going to watch this. So, what do you guys see for the future of New Mexico? like what's going to happen? Where's retail going to go? Where's cultivation going to go? Where's manufacturing going to go? Do you see it expanding in any way? I mean, what way do you see it growing?
Well, I've seen pounds go from 3,700 indoor going down to now 1,800. I've seen outdoor go from 2 going down to 8, 7. I could get nice bead buds for 5 all day long.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say where, but there's hundreds of pounds available from these producer processors. So
So I think what that means is there's plenty of product out there.
Right.
And so if you were starting up, if you're just looking at this objectively, it's like you don't have to produce product yourself. And if you want to start, or if you want to shift, or if you want to trim your operations a little bit, you can probably buy it at least as well as you could make it, at least for a while, probably for a pretty good amount of time.
So you could get into the market without having to be your own grower.
Without having to be your own grower. So I think some specialization, and which always makes sense, right? Because one thing that drives me crazy about, and I grew up in retail, a lot of these shops, particularly in places like New Mexico, they're not really well merchandised. And I realize you don't have to go deep in the stuff that doesn't sell all the time, but you got to have some kind of selection. Otherwise you're just a convenient place on the way home for that one thing, right? You're like even a C-store has a fridge full of mediocre beer and soda. You know what I mean? Like it's got lots of different, not like a full liquor store, but they've got some choices. So I think, but you got to specialize to do that, because if you're also spending money on cultivation or manufacturing, you're not going to be able to invest in the inventory and tracking the turn and all of this stuff. So I think there's going to be some consolidation, is my forecast.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I'm often wrong.
Okay.
I'm never completely right, but it just seems that there's that much product out there in the marketplace. The other thing I think to think about is if there's growth, where is it going to come from? Like so some could come from the illicit market if the thing is right. Some could come from people who are not really using sort of this transitional quasi-medical, maybe a little bit less alcohol, maybe there's some of that. And then there's we've been at it for a couple of years now, so some of the people who previously lived in adjacent states and would come in to cannabis recreate, like they can. How much more of that is there?
Right.
Like I don't know, but it's not infinite.
Okay.
Right?
Do you see a cap though, or do you see a continuation
of sales growth?
Yeah.
I don't see a cap, but I just think like there's some. So like.
Is it more just capitalism? Like basically, like if you're good, you're good, and if you're not, you're not.
Well, I think it's you can be good and make and not be lucky, or you can make a reasonable strategic decision that turned out to be wrong. Like you just don't, like no one. On one hand, for the past 10 years, you could say interest rates are going to go up, but no one knew when, right? So that's really a little bit hard to predict, and there's some things like down scheduling that could happen, that could really change, that would change everybody's margins, right, across the board. If you
it went from Schedule 1 to Schedule
right.
All right, yeah, right. That's a whole other
so any of those kinds of things, anything that would affect sort of safe banking, something like that would affect margins. And I think there will be some. I wouldn't be surprised to see some more municipal level regulation. So there's not 2 dispensaries in every strip mall. That's another problem too. That's got nothing to do with cannabis. There's a ton of vacant retail space because of the shift to online commerce and things like that. So there's a lot of landlords are motivated in properties that don't have a lot of demand to take tenants otherwise.
That's not always true. There's a lot of hungry landlords who will not give in to cannabis. It's a struggle.
And why?
I don't know.
I do.
Why?
Because they've been burned, because there's no collateral, because there's no track record, because there's not.
Hang on a minute. Well, how about
right.
mortgages, right? They have commercial loans on those buildings, some of those guys. They can't lease to cannabis.
Sometimes they can't. No, that's right. That's right.
That's
they
a lot
can't
of the
insure.
reason, too.
That is part of the reason. No, that is part of the reason. No, there are many reasons. There's not a single reason. But here's the overall thing. It's more complicated to lease to a cannabis client. It just is. Because your insurance. So I've got a landlord I'm really close to. It's like, they had to show that the percentage of hemp in the hemp shop was going to be low enough it wouldn't reach a threshold that the insurance company had. It wasn't even a law; it's just a policy.
Geez.
That's
So
what
there's a ton behind it all that just goes
Right.
beyond whatever. Listen, guys, I know you guys can.
Well, I could sit here talking
I'm
forever,
I'm actually
but-
glad because it's good to have both sides. How do people get in touch with you? You know,
I mean, they can touch at me at matt@score420.io. I mean, I don't know what services I can sell. I'm not a lawyer.
Listen.
You know what I mean? So,
no, but I mean basically.
but if someone wants some advice and I feel it's not intrusive,
Okay.
I have no problem.
Okay, but if you're ever in New Mexico and you wanted to get a 4 for 20 pre-rolled,
6 for 26.
6
for
for
26.
26.
Mix and match.
56 pack
Yeah.
for $200. You seen our billboards?
56
I
pack
got
for
10 of them around
$200.
town.
That's how
Okay,
you do
well, I
that
know where
volume.
my next trip
Right.
is.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
And
And how
Seth,
about yourself?
Blackgardenlaw.com. Blackgardenlaw.com. There's contact forms, phone numbers, email, whatever you want. So we can. You can get a hold of us.
beautiful.
Awesome, awesome. That was fantastic, guys. Thank you for your time.
All right,
you.
That was one
Eric's
of my
giving us
favorite
the
segments.
finger. All right. Thank you. He's giving us the finger for the third time. Guys, this is Vito Shackled at MJ BizCon. This was New Mexico. See you in the
Thanks,
next
guys.
one.
See you.
Thank you.
Thank you.